לאחר עזיבתם של משפחת בגין וצמרת המדינה את חלקת הקבר, פרצו אלפי אזרחים אבלים אל הרחבה. הם השתטחו על הקבר והניחו עליו אבנים. יעקב אחימאיר היה שם.
כך בלמה שרשרת של שוטרים אלפי אזרחים בהר הזיתים ומנעה מהם מלהתקרב אל הקבר. אבל משהסתלקו בני המשפחה, צמרת המדינה ומקורבים וידידים מחלקת הקבר, לאחר שנאמרו התפילות, הסתער עמך באלפיו אל הקבר הטרי. הכל רצו להתקרב, לגעת. היה שם בליל של אנשים, שוטרים וצלמים. היו שניסו לארגן סדר כלשהו, ואחד אפילו זעק מרה. הוא היה המפקד שלי. אי אפשר לאפיין את אלה שחשו אל הקבר הטרי. דתיים, חילוניים, צעירים וקשישים, גברים ונשים. אל הקבר בא ציבור שאיננו משתתף כמובן בטקסים ממלכתיים כלשהם. זהו ציבור ללא כרטיס הזמנה. כך זה היה, ללא איפוק, ללא מחיצות, שעה קלה בלבד, לאחר שנטמן מנחם בגין בהר הזיתים.
קודם שנמשיך, הלווייתו של אהוד סדן שטוק, קצין הביטחון של שגרירות ישראל בטורקיה, שנרצח בשבת באנקרה. אהוד סדן, זיכרונו לברכה, הובא אחרי הצהריים למנוחת עולמים בחלקת המשטרה בבית הקברות הצבאי בהר הרצל בירושלים.
בשגרירות ישראל בוושינגטון ובקונסוליות הישראליות ברחבי ארצות הברית התקבלו היום מאות שיחות טלפון מאת יהודים שביקשו להביע את צערם על מותו של מנחם בגין. ועידת הנשיאים של הארגונים היהודיים פרסמה הודעת אבל ובה נאמר כי מנחם בגין ייזכר לעד כאיש עקרונות, איש חזון ואומץ לב שתרם להקמתה ולביטחונה של מדינת ישראל. נשיא ארצות הברית ג'ורג' בוש כינס את נציגי אמצעי התקשורת כדי לפרסם הודעה מיוחדת במותו של מנחם בגין.
Well, what I want to do now is to send our most sincere condolences to the people of Israel and to the family of Mנחם Begin, former Prime Minister. His historic role in the peace process will never be forgotten. A particular emphasis, of course, will always be on his historic and I would say very courageous, foresighted role at Camp David. And now people are talking peace. But people will remember Mנחם Begin as the man that made a significant, courageous breakthrough, just as they will remember Sadat for the same thing. So we send our most sincere condolences to the people there.
ולכמה תגובות מן העולם הערבי, הנשיא מובארק אומר באיגרת תנחומים, מנחם בגין היה המדינאי הישראלי הראשון שקיבל את העיקרון של שטחים תמורת שלום. ראש ממשלת מצרים לשעבר, הגנרל כמאל חסן עלי, אמר, בגין היה איש בעל אומץ לעשות שלום, ואני מקווה שליורשיו יהיה אומץ דומה. יושב ראש הפרלמנט של ירדן, עבד אל-לטיף ארביאט, ממנהיגי האחים המוסלמים, אמר, מוות הוא רצונו של אללה, ואיני רוצה לפגוע בכבודו של אדם מת. מנהיג מפלגת הבעת' בלבנון, המשמש שר בממשלת ביירות, עבדאללה אל-אמין, אמר, בגין היה טרוריסט ממדרגה ראשונה. מזכיר האו"ם בוטרוס גאלי ספד היום למנחם בגין במרכז האו"ם בניו יורק.
Mנחם Begin had the courage and the political imagination to respond to the initiative of President Sadat. It is due to this courage and to this initiative that the peace treaty was concluded, and let us hope that the new generation of Israeli leaders and Arab leaders will have the same political imagination and the same courage. Thank you.
ונשיא ארצות הברית לשעבר ג'ימי קרטר אומר כי מנחם בגין יחרט לנצח בהיסטוריה של מדינת ישראל ושל המזרח התיכון כאחד המנהיגים הגדולים בתולדות עם ישראל. הנשיא קרטר היה שותף למנחם בגין ולאנואר סאדאת בחתימה על הסכמי קמפ דיוויד. הנשיא קרטר העניק ראיון מיוחד לטלוויזיה הישראלית ועמו שוחח בביתו בעיירה פליינס שבג'ורג'יה כתבנו יאיר שטרן.
Mr. President, how would history judge Mr. Begin?
Well, I think as a man, a leader who was instrumental in two of the major events in the lives of the Israeli people. First of all, as a strong and militant leader, he fought for and helped to bring about the foundation of the nation of Israel. Secondly, he was instrumental in the most impressive movement of Israel toward peace for his people. So the founding of a nation and a major step toward peace, I think, would place Prime Minister Begin in a very preeminent place in the history of the Middle East and of Israel.
How did you two get to know each other after you became president?
Well, I was inaugurated president in January of 1977, and Prime Minister Begin was elected later on that spring in May. And shortly after he became the Prime Minister, I immediately invited him over to meet me in the White House. We had long and very extensive conversations about the future of his country, about the relationship between our two nations, and particularly about the peace process, which at that time had been either non-existent or dormant for many years. There had been 4 serious wars in just 25 years. But with the cooperation of President Sadat from Egypt, it was obvious to me that there was a possibility, at least, of reopening the peace process. So this was a very dominant factor in my early acquaintance with Mנחem Begin, and ultimately, of course, led to what I think were historic moves toward improving the lives of his people.
You know, Mr. President, that people say, since you are a religious man and a believer, and Mr. Begin was a religious man and a believer, and so did the late President Sadat, that religion created chemistry among the three of you. Do you share this notion?
Yes, I don't think that's an exaggeration to say that the shared faith in a common God, a monotheistic religion, was something that did bind us together. One of the first things we had to do at Camp David was to arrange for worship services.
Yeah.
We didn't have many facilities. We had a small room. So obviously, on Friday, we would have the religious services for the Muslims there, on Saturday for the Jews, and on Sunday for the Christians in the same place. We would have to change the rooms about. And I think the first agreement that we had at Camp David was on a common prayer that we issued and asked the entire world to join us in asking God to lead us toward a peaceful resolution of the conflict that had so long afflicted the region.
What have persuaded you personally that you can achieve peace between these two enemies, Mr. Sadat and Mr. Begin?
Well, I saw in both Sadat and Begin an element of political strength and courage. They had deep commitments to their own principles, to the historical nature of the problems of our country. They clearly understood those. But I also saw at least an element of statesmanship and flexibility that could be tapped to bring about compromises whenever the compromises were far transcended by the benefits to be derived. Unfortunately, Prime Minister Begin and President Sadat were totally incompatible in a personal way. Mm-hmm. I could see this quite early. Whenever they were in the same room together with me, sparks would fly and ancient animosities would arise, and historical resurrections of differences would dominate. So after the first few days, they never saw each other again at Camp David. I kept them apart for the last 10 days. Although they lived only about 200 yards apart, they never saw each other until the final hour or so. But I think that both men saw their own people's lives in a historical content, what was best for them in the long term. And obviously Prime Minister Begin was a man of very deep convictions. One of the most serious obstacles that I had to overcome was his oath that he had taken earlier, that he would never dismantle an Israeli settlement. And the way that we finessed this commitment was by getting him to agree to let the Knesset decide on whether the settlements in the Sinai should be dismantled, and the Knesset did indeed vote to take that action in order to reach a peaceful agreement with Egypt. But these were two strong and courageous men with deep convictions, and it was on their strength and courage and integrity that the peace process was founded.
And finally, Mr. President, would you like to convey through us a message to the Begin family or to the people of Israel?
Well, I personally would like to extend my own heartfelt condolences to the family of Menachem Begin, and also the people outside his family who loved him as a genuine leader of the nation of Israel. He deserves the accolades of history. He was a man of brilliance, one of the most intelligent men I've ever known in my life. He knew history, he was multilingual, he had deep and unshakable convictions, he was a man of his word, he was a man who I think helped shape a foundation on which the peace process can be continued. So it's a matter of personal loss to me, of a man who meant so much in my own life. I think that the sentiments that I just expressed to you in a personal fashion would be shared by the people of my country, who still look upon Prime Minister Begin as one of the heroes of the peace process in the Middle East.
Mr. President, thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you.